Simone, yeah, we just heard Osama talking about science in classes, and there are a lot of people out there in the world today who find a way to marry religious practice, religious tradition with the practice of science. Not just talking about cell phone usage, but searching the skies for stars, searching in a microscope for medical discoveries. But it's hard sometimes for students coming up through K through 12 classes, through university, to get that impression. How does an organization like ING or any other one sort of counter the message that science and religion are completely incompatible?
Thank you for that question, Rachel. And I also want to say good evening and thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. I think with regards to the question of science and religion, it's really important that we hear from respected members of our community about not just how we can reconcile science and religion, but how the two actually can really work in symbiosis. I had the honor of attending a Jewish day school for 9 years, and then I attended a secular high school that was also wonderful. But it was really powerful to have my faith values instilled in me in an educational institution from K through 8, and see from my science teachers how for them, their faith was a source of the value of inquiry and the value of asking questions and interpreting, that actually supported their study of science and their study of anything is a crucial message, I think, for us to receive as young people. So I think the two can work in symbiosis, and the more vocal we can be about that, the better.
All right, I'll pass it back down this way. Just like the speaking stone. Do you have the microphone? Seher, do you think it's just too scary for a young person today to admit to having a religious practice?
Thank you again. Assalamu alaikum. I'm also really honored and excited to be up here because ING has been a part of my life since I was about 6 months old. So it's kind of coming full circle. But I think that is a true statement in the sense that there's a lack of language to be able to express religiosity or religious practice, and that for many people is very scary. If I don't know how to explain it to myself, how am I supposed to explain it to other people? And especially in interfaith interactions, when you don't have the language to speak about other traditions, or you don't feel comfortable asking them questions, then you get in a sticky situation and you just kind of remain in a single bubble. So while there are many groups and people who, in my experience, they've allowed me to break those barriers and given me language and the tools to be able to talk about my faith, that's not present for many people. And I think it's something that in the future is going to become an increasing solution or problem that we'll need to find a solution for.
Do you think kids need to be prepared with talking points? How do you get over that?
Yeah, no, I think the first start is for youth or anybody to be comfortable talking about their own faith, to be proud of who they are, and to know this is what I believe, and I want to share it with other people. And once you get past that, it's much easier to just start saying, hey, we're friends, let's talk.
Beautifully put. And last but not least, Tim. I guess my question for you is, what do you think the impact is of news and entertainment on young people's view of what faith is about?
Well, I'd like to also say thank you for having me. I've been working with ING for a few years, but I never expected that they'd throw me up on the stage. So thank you much. The media is a tough nut to crack in terms of religion. Rachel alluded to it in her intro. Imam Suhaib talked about it. From my perspective as a Catholic, abuse scandal notwithstanding, these last 11 months with Pope Francis, it's kind of never been a better time to be a Catholic because he's really cool. So people be asking like, oh yeah, what do you think of this guy? He's great. He refers to Muslims as brothers and sisters instead of silly things that his predecessor would have said. But generally, I would say the media is hostile to the idea of an authentic lived and mutually experienced faith community like we have in America, this hugely pluralistic and diverse society. So on the one hand, we can turn on the TV or movies or read the paper, and the maxim, if it bleeds, it leads, really does rule overall. The stories that we hear about religion are usually pretty bad. When they are good, they are usually a tiny local news story, and they can be quite inspiring, but they seldom reach the national stage. It's, I think, the role of the media to try to find those good stories and pull out learning and meaning from them and make sure that more people hear them, because the more of those good stories that we have, the easier it will be for young people to find good examples of their own religion on the TV screen or in films. It is certainly difficult to be a young person and see things on the TV that are not at all like what you think your own faith is, or your friends if they're not your religion. And moving past that and living authentically as a person of faith can be an intensely difficult thing. I think we'll talk about that a bit more here.
We all get to be ambassadors one way or another for everything we represent. Suhaib, how can we support young people in finding a way to sort of assert their religious identity that in a way that doesn't threaten other people, that doesn't make them fear that if they don't share the same beliefs, they're not acceptable?
Well, I think you have Osama Cannon modeling that very beautifully in this community. You know, those of you who live here, you have kind of a miracle in the making at Ta'leef, mashallah. May Allah continue to bless him. It's a local organization. Sorry, I got off topic. But I really believe that there's some great work being done. Rabbi Ron, who I work with in Boston, and Rabbi Andrew Vogel have talked to me about certain rabbis in the Reform community who have really opened up their entire office to be led by young people, and basically coming to the community and saying, listen, I can't, these are my responsibilities, I can't do them all. Who can do them? And really getting and employing young people's creativity and hands-on experiences into the community. And actually those are some of the more flourishing now Reform synagogues in the country. The second area is employing people in the sense of asking people to get involved and benefiting from their experiences. The second is that, in the Muslim community, there's this crisis of the tradition, where the tradition now is dominating even how we function in transmodern America. And this goes back to the first point about people are not necessarily distant from Islam, but they're distant from how Islam is presented to them. There's a show called The Shahs of Sunset or something. I saw it today in my hotel room. What a show. And there's this, this young Iranian woman who's talking about how beautiful the Blue Mosque is, and the adhan is called, and she starts crying, and she's moved. She goes into the Blue Mosque and she's told, you can't sit here, you can't walk here, you can't look here, you can't be here. And her tears suddenly turn to like a great sense of frustration and apathy towards the institutions that claim to hold her religion. So the second area, I think, is we really need to look at, in the face of kind of a traditional response to modernity, I think it's problematic. We need to start asking our communities and our young people, what is it that you want to learn, and how would you teach it? So it's not only what do you want to learn, but how would you teach it? What will be the best way to answer some of the questions you have in your mind? I, as an imam, trust you to teach me. So in Boston, we have the concept of the learning mosque, the learning pulpit, the learning imam. It's not just teaching, but it's a learning process.
It's a dialogue.
Yeah, a dialogue, exactly. And then the last, congratulations, by the way, it's my favorite auntie in the Bay Area. I was so happy to see you win that award. And the last point is that we need to create fellowship opportunities. If you look at Muslim communities across America, we have speeches after speeches, talks after talks. The Bay Area, you're inundated with a guest speaker every week. And actually what that does, it makes you like a theological gumbo. You really don't have a direction that you're headed, because every week it's a guest speaker who doesn't know you, doesn't understand your problems, doesn't understand that Cisco is no longer a drink we used to drink in the 80s. It's now a company. They don't know that. And when they talk to you, they're not able to give you any real clear compass of where a community is headed in that joint conversation. So the last, I think, really important point is, instead of offering classes after classes after classes after classes and bringing a Maulana to teach us, where's the fellowship in the community? Where's the sense of belonging? Right? So one of the things that religion does offer, is fraternity. We forgot that the Prophet created a mechanism for fraternity in Medina. So those three areas are very important.
All right, last question for you here. Is there a way for schools and other public institutions to maintain neutrality on religion without appearing to dismiss its value?
I think the answer is definitely yes, and I think it starts with recognizing really what makes America unique, which is this value for pluralism. And I don't think we should take this for granted. As someone who's traveled around Europe and really dealt with issues of religious diversity, America is a very unique place. It's given me a new appreciation for the way the United States has dealt with religious pluralism. And if we can start with those values, we can truly get to a point where we are both not giving any one religion special treatment, but at the same time not disparaging religion by getting at this issue through the lens of pluralism rather than the absence of religion. I just wanted to comment on something else that Imam Suhaib Webb said in terms of young people and how we can engage them. You know, one thing that there's sort of this running joke in my house. I have a 13-year-old, and the joke is that it's sort of a frustration on his part that every talk that is targeted toward his age group talks about identity. It's like every week, every speaker, it's this obsession by people our age in instilling or sort of targeting this concept to people my son's age, is this obsession with identity. Whereas really, identity is an outcome of a spiritual engagement. So we skip the foundation. It really has to be an inside-out process. So why do I have a Muslim identity? Because I actually believe that this spiritual experience is meaningful to me. And so I choose to have a Muslim identity, and I choose to project that. But we want our kids to hold that identity as almost more important than building that inside meaning. And then however they want to express that, that internal experience should sort of be for them to discover, rather than going so quickly to more of the outcome and the symptom of an internal experience.